Okay, hello guys. This is Arun Mane, and today we are going to talk about the SDR and yes, what the SDR community. It's a community-driven group, and which focused on the SDR, that is software-defined radio, and this the group is run by four techie guys, nerds, jerks, you can say. So my name is Arun Mane, and we have Arun Magesh. Say hi to Arun Magesh. And the third guy is Abhijit. Right now, he's not here. He's traveling somewhere. I can't disclose it here. And same again with Rishikesh Nandedkar. He's at Nanded because he's not. He's from Nanded. He's a Nandedkar. So you can find the below. You can find a link below the STR Redefined link, and you can follow us, and you can ask the question over here. And soon we are going to stream this video on the given link. Am I correct? Yeah. Okay. So today's agenda is like it's our first workshop, that is 101, and we have four speaker. So if you saw the previous agenda, it's get changed a little bit, right? So we'll start with Rishikesh Somchatwar. Somchatwar. Okay, so it's supposed to be a first session by Rishikesh Nandedkar, but somehow he's not here. So instead of Rishikesh, another Rishikesh came, and it's like Arun and Arun. It's like Rishikesh and Rishikesh, something kind of. This guy is from Nagpur, and he traveled from Nagpur over here to deliver some talk related to hardware hacking. Another guy is Jitendra Kumar, and he's from Bangalore, and he is really enthusiastic guy who in security related to hardware, because he again came from the Bangalore. These guys are curious about the hardware hacking and SDR defined radio. And another guy, Arun Magesh, he's a celebrity. Yeah. And yes, he's going to talk about SDR toolchain like GQRX, SDR Sharp, blah 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 things, and me, yeah. So the very noob guy, yeah, will introduce the GNU radio, but not this week. I will talk in next week because of some problems with the hardware. So I'm going to talk about this thing in the next week. Okay, so let's start with our first speaker. His name is Rishikesh Somchatwar. Okay, so I just going to change my slides. Okay, and let's start. The okay, here we go. So uh, yeah, so here's our guy Rishikesh. So he's going to talk about the uh, he's talk he's going to talk about the hardware hacking. It's the introduction part, and here we go.
So, hello everybody, this is Hirishikesh Somchatwar from Nagpur. I'll be telling you about some of the introductory part of the hardware hacking and some of the tools which are being used in the art of hardware hacking. So, let us begin. So, first of all, let's have a quick introduction about me. I'm an engineering student from Priyadarsini College of Engineering, Nagpur. I spend most of my time in hardware hacking and innovations. I love making and breaking stuff. and apparently I'm bad at making PowerPoint presentation, which you can see because some of the a bit of different kinds of images are being implemented by me. So by making and breaking stuff, I mean that making projects with the RTLSD are not RTLSDR. Take example of a Arduino, take example of Raspberry Pi, take example of some of the IoT based on a $9 chip. So I've made projects with that, and I love making things, and I love breaking stuff. So breaking stuff, by which you can see is like breaking in, tearing down apart the hardware, tearing down the embedded devices, and making a lot of things with it, like hacking them. Like hacking is something which you can do to um, which you do to increase the productivity or change the productivity or make something new with it. So let's begin. So we are all surrounded by hardware embedded devices, Wi-Fi routers, TV setup boxes, calculators, ATMs, printers, and the list goes on. But there are only a few people who think that these devices are vulnerable, or they can be hacked, or they can be hacked so that a particular thing, like their productivity, can be increased or changed. So let's talk about hacking them. Apparently, so our weapons would be multimeter, a soldering iron, magnifying glass, a microscope, some of the spare parts, and a bit of wires, and most importantly, curiosity to learn new things. So multimeter would be used to search for the potential difference, and get some of the data from the electricity. Soldering iron would be for soldering stuff, like if take example of a JTAG interface or a serial port, and we need to get the data from USB to TTL connector at our machine to and we need to get the data, so we need sorting iron, and we need to sort some of the pins in it. Magnifying glass are important because most of the chips which we have on our particular devices, like embedded devices, the circuit, I mean to say that. So in these circuits, the text which is written, like at the time of information gathering, I'll be covering this in the next slide. So magnifying glass is important, and microscope is optional, and spare parts and wires and the curiosity, as I said. So how you can actually be hardware hacker? So you don't have to be a very good programmer to be a hardware hacker, or you don't have to be a very good RTLSDR kind of guy, or the software defined radio kind of guy. You just have to have the curiosity to learn, and just most importantly, you must know how things are actually working. So this is not mandatory that, take example, if you want to hack a Wi-Fi router. Now, at the time of hacking a Wi-Fi router, it is not mandatory that you must know that from this particular IC, this data is going, and then frequencies are getting caught, and something like that. So just open up the hardware, tear it down. Yes, guys, tear it down. Pull up the screws. Just look inside. If you don't understand how it works, it's okay. But just try to understand how the circuit works. It is not mandatory, like I said earlier, that it is not mandatory that you know everything. But still, have the curiosity to open up these things and try to understand how the circuit works. Now, research for doing a research. Google is your best friend here. Information gathering is the most important part in our concept. Information gathering is the most important part in hardware hacking as well as hacking also. This is because to do a particular kind of hacking, you must understand about your target. And when it comes to hardware hacking, you must understand about what the device which you are probably using. So you can also search for patents at patents.google.com. Just don't read the claims, because obviously that is going to be illegal. Uh, you can also look for the FCC ID. Now, most of the, like, not maximum, like take example, 99% of the devices, radio transmitting devices, are being given an FCC ID. Now you can search for they are given an FCC ID. Now you can take that particular FCC IDs, go at fcc.io, and search for that particular FCC ID, and then you can get the complete data of that of that device. Take it from data sheets, take it from its frequencies, and how it has been made, and everything. So If the device has radio frequencies, Wi-Fi, USB, networking, you can sniff it from some of the sniffers like Wireshark and some kind of that. And you can also check for JTAG pins or the serial interfaces. Now, some more steps. Now, information gathering is the most, like I said, information gathering is the most important part in our hardware hacking. So you can also check out for what are the chips they have, data sheets. Are there any data sheets available on the internet, or the FCC ID? Um, if it has an FCC ID, you can go to fcc.io and search about it and gather some more information. Guys, this is one of the most critical parts, so please pay attention to this. That's FCC ID or information gathering. So please make sure that you gather a lot of information, so it will not like you have gathered a lot of information about your target, and which will help you only to hack the system or make a new things with it. So datasheets 360 is also a great place. So you can just go to datasheets360.com, search for the particular part or the IC, and get the information, like get all of the information about it, like its data sheet, what frequency it works, and so forth. It is just like fcc.io, but in a datasheet perspective, like an electronics based perspective. You can analyze the circuit networks and device components. That is the time when you are using a magnifying glass. Like I said, just use a magnifying glass to read everything, to read the text, to read the part names and everything, and then you can search for them on the websites like datasheets 360. Get the FCC ID from fcc.io, or websites like that. So most important part is like, guys, that you can get all the information from the public sources itself. Now you don't have to just go there every time and mail them or do some kind of social engineering or any other kind of hacking just to get the information. All the informations are available on the internet. All you have to do is just to search on Google or websites like that and get the information done. Some more steps is like you can also go to websites like Mauser, DigiKey, and the manufacturer's website. Now what actually happens is manufacturer's website also gives you the official firmware of this particular device. Now you can also call the manufacturer or mail them or do some social engineering to get the firmware. Now the best part about firmware would be, I think this also covers the IoT part. Take example of a Philips light bulb. Now Philips smart bulb, to get the firmware of a Philips smart bulb, you don't have to they have, take example that they have not provided you the firmware on the official website. So how did you get that firmware? How do you get that firmware? So as the device is smart, there is also a link on the APK file. That is, as you're controlling your smart devices from phones, so you just reverse engineer the APK file and get the link. Once you get the link, download the link and use different kind of things like binwalk or to extract the firmwares and do some kind of different attacks. I'll also explain what are the things can be done with the firmware. So how do we hack or learn? So how do we hack or learn? This would be like, many of these devices use standardized protocols. In this case, we are going to use two protocols, that is JTAG and UART. And in most of the cases, these devices do not have protected firmwares, guys. Now, the two main protocols, like I said, is Joint Test and Action Group, that is the JTAG, and Universal Asynchronous Receive Transmit, that is the UART. So these are the two main protocols we are going to have a look at. Excuse me. What can be done with the firmware? So like I said, we can find interesting things when we do reverse engineering of a firmware. We can have passwords, private keys, web endpoints, interesting backdoors, and whatnot. So this is like, you can also modify the firmware, like pull off the firmware, do some reverse engineering, reflash to the device, and then you can do whatever you want to. This is the art of reverse engineering, or this is like very helpful when it comes to hardware hacking. So JTAG, it is also used for debugging and programming hardware on chips. Like you can debug and program the hardware, that is the firmware. It is also used in dumping firmware and also used in exploiting of IT devices. Now JTAG can be also used for the exploitation of IT devices. If you find a UART interface, when it comes to UART, I'm speaking this in terms of UART. So if you find a UART interface on a particular hardware, like take example, if you have opened up a Wi-Fi router, I'm going to also explain about the reason why I'm expressing like focusing more on the Wi-Fi router part. It is because I have done a lot of case studies on this, and that is the reason why I'm like explaining about this about the Wi-Fi hacking, not Wi-Fi hacking, Wi-Fi routers embedded devices hacking. So if you find the UART interface, you can also get a console on the device. Now take example, all you have to do is just to get a USB to TTL connector. A USB to TTL connector will be connected to your machine, and then this particular machine's other part will be connected to the UART interface. Once you do this, demessage, and then you get all the information of the particular device. You can also use Minicom with the predefined baud rate or something like that. Sometimes you don't even need a password to log in, so you can just directly get access to the shell. Sometimes you can also brute force it, like if the firmware of the device has not been changed of the Wi-Fi router, so you can just connect it, and then you can get the complete file system, like complete root access without even logging into it. And if sometimes logging in is required, you can also brute force it. So let's talk about RFs. Yes, you got that right. I'm talking about our favorite software-defined radio stuff. Now, this is also known as RTL-SDR. It only costs about 100 rupees in 1,000 rupees in our company, in our country, $20, which you can say. It is also famous for knowing as the $20 RTL-SDR, and there are a lot of links on Reddit and NetSec. There's also a link of NetSec on Reddit explaining the complete history of RDL-SDR. You can read that. There are also awesome tools for radio frequency stuff. There was a time when radio frequencies was like not a topic of cyber security, but someday a hacker came, like a hardware hacker, you can say. He uses TV tuner, connected that particular antenna to his Linux machine, and then just try to sniff it, and then it works. This is how hackers work, just like scientists. So some of the radio frequency tools, RTL-SDR. Now RTL-SDR is also very inexpensive. It uses TVBT TV tuner based on the RTL2832U chipset. Now RTL-SDR is also known as the Realtek software defined radio. So I'm not going to cover all of this because Arun sir is going to cover this. So some more RF tools. So some more RF tools could be a Hack RF by Michael Osman. A Hack RF is like the most like Hack RF is the most efficient tool, you can say, but it is like not cheap. So maybe if you can afford, you can use it for your hardware hacking stuff. It works on 1 megahertz to 6 gigahertz. Yes, I repeat, 1 megahertz to 6 gigahertz frequency range, and it is used for transmitting. So you can use this device too. I have also given the link in the slide. This is the link. Here it is. Okay. Um, there is also one more tool called Ubertooth One. Now this is a complete Bluetooth tool. This is used for Bluetooth hacking stuff, and this is not basically this has been brought up by Michael Osman, and this is also not a very inexpensive tool. So it is not available on cheap. It is expensive tool when it comes to hardware hacking, because things should be like inexpensive to, like, any according to me, like any of the normal engineering student or a normal person should be able to buy and do uh, a pen test work for his hardware hacking and his hardware hacking. So Bus Pirate is also an awesome tool. Ability to program various microcontrollers, program low-end microcontrollers using advanced protocols at your fingertips. Yes, and this is our favorite. This is the Arduino Uno. It is super cheap. You all might be knowing about it. It is easily available. Awesome support on online forums. Many other variants available from the same community. That is like Arduino Mini, Arduino Pro Micro, and something like that. But there are a lot of Arduinos available, and everybody knows about them. So this is the USB to TTL connector which I was talking about. This is the same thing I told when it comes to the hardware hacking of the Wi-Fi router. Now this is very affordable. It's easily available on the internet. Can A small piece of hardware, awesome piece of hardware, could be obtained from any of the local vendors or websites like Amazon, TI, that is Texas Instruments or something like that. You can find serial. Just all you have to do is just to find the serial port, attach your TX, RX, ground, and VCC. The VCC would be like 3.3 volts to 5 volts pins, and connect your USB to a Linux machine. Just demessage and check the status in the terminal. You can also use Minicom with different kind of baud rates, and check if you can read the data. So let's open up the hardware, and it's time for some jugaad. I'm using I'm using a TP-Link MR3020 for our hardware hacking stuff. Now, the reason why I'm using a TP-Link hardware, a reason I'm using a TP-Link MR3020 is because it has an awesome USB support. You don't have to do other kind of soldering stuff or something like that to hack into it, or to make it more productive. It has an Ethernet cable support. Firmware support is awesome. The firmware I'm talking about here is the OpenWRT firmware. Um, the OpenWRT firmware is like an specially designed for embedded devices, specially designed for Wi-Fi routers, I can say, to increase their productivity and to unleash their power. So you can definitely get this particular device and do a lot of hardware hacking with this. It has online forum support. It also supports monitoring mode on Linux, and custom made sniffers can be installed. Now let's open up the device. So once the device has been opened, let me show you here. This is the USB host. Once we open up the device, you don't have to buy the device every time. Like I said, you can get all the data from websites like fcc.io. So this is the USB host. This is the DC power supply. I've mentioned everything over here. This is the serial port over here, VCC, ground, TX, and RX. This is WLAN, and this is the WPS chip. These are the chips. This is the PROM. So there is a fantabulous hack. I'm not sure this is by Sir Vivek Ramchandran or a different person, but as I've read it, so I'll give the name of Vivek sir. So change the firmware to OpenWRT, connect it to the internet. Now, all to change the firmware, you just have to go to the website of openwrt.org, find your find your that find your model number of the uh, Wi-Fi router. Once you've downloaded the bin file, just go to firmware upgrade file, firmware upgrade page, and then you can just navigate to the and then you can just upload the .bin file. So once it's done, it will reboot, and its IP will be changed to 192.168.0.1. Now once it's done, you have to log into it, and then connect it to internet. Now once connected to the internet, you can also install USB support on it via Linux. Now once USB support has been installed, you can create exe root on USB to get the root access. Install wireless pen test tools for our wireless pen testing. You can also install Python and SKP. This is because to craft the packets, SKP has to be installed, and to do some of the like what I said. To do some of the uh, wireless sniffing and custom made to make some of the custom made scripts, you have to install Python and Skippy, and then access the serial port. Open up the router. So to access the serial port, you have to just open up the router, get search for the serial ports. That is the here is the serial port which I showed you. This is VCC, ground, TX, and RX. So VCC will be for 5 volt, 3.3 volts or 5 volts. Ground will be the ground. TX for receiving, TX for transmitting, RX for receiving. So access the bootloader of a serial, firmware extraction and building with the firmware mod kit. So all you have to do is just to download the firmware mod kit, extract the firmware, You can add your own sniffer in it, and you can do a lot of hacking a lot of customization in this. So here, now I come to the conclusion. um, Gather complete information about the device, dig up the information, find data sheets, circuit diagrams, and do a lot of information gathering, guys, because that will going to help you a lot. Now open up the device and try to understand how it works. Now after opening up, you can also search for the FCC ID. Like I said, this is the third time I'm explaining about again the FCC ID. I'm telling about the FCC ID again. Gather information about the components, like you can use your magnifying glass and search for them on the different kinds of places, on different kinds of website on the internet. You can also extract the firmware and do reverse engineering, and think of other hacking techniques. So that's all from me. Thank you, guys. Any questions?